Hi, this is Don, and I'm an old school kind of guy. Now, today I want to talk about fish food. Probably not the same way everyone else does. Eh, I don't fit the mold very well, too big. First thing I'm going to say is do what works for you. If you've got 20 neons in a 55-gallon Planet tank, and I got 20 neons in a 55-gallon Planet tank, there is no guarantee that they're going to eat the same foods. Even if yours are wild caught and mine are wild caught, there's no guarantees that they're going to eat the same food. You got to do what works for you and for your fish. Every tank is different, every fish is different, and every fish keeper is different. So I'm just going to give you some simple little guidelines. One of the things I've been asked more than once is about Tubifex. I frequently hear them called blackworms today. When I was a young man, they were reddish. Well, we had black ones back then too, but the ones I got in Oregon were reddish. Now here's the thing. Are Tubifex good for your fish or bad? Sure they are. I hear a lot of people say Tubifex are too fatty. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. I fed my Corys nothing but Tubifex. They were happy and they bred like crazy. It worked. Are Tubifex bad? Sure. One thing is, live Tubifex will escape. The fish won't get them all. They'll go down into the substrate, and they reproduce. And pretty soon your substrate looks like a waving mass, just like a giant flag waving in the wind, with all those Tubifex sticking up out of the substrate. And then it's cool to watch Cory Cat go by and all those Tubifex suck back down into the substrate in a hurry. Tubifex, are they good? Are they bad? These days, Tubifex tend to be bad simply because they're usually captured in sewage, and we have so many diseases running rampant in America: fish disease, people disease, diseases. Say that 3 times real fast. If you get Tubifex and you put them in a shallow dish and you keep them under cold running water continuously for 6 or 8 weeks, and don't hold me to that, you might have to do your own research, but they'll go through enough generations that they'll no longer be carrying diseases. At least that's the theory. Now, cold running water, because that's what they like, but you don't want it running very fast. You want it running fairly slow, and you want a shallow dish because you want it shallow enough that there's still a little bit of current, and the dead worms float and the live worms don't. So the dead will float off. You also need a little bit of flow, because Tubifex will, in an empty pan, will tend to gather in the center in a ball. Maybe not in the center, but in a ball. The water needs to hit that ball and break it up so that the dead float away. Now you can keep them in the refrigerator, which is where they're best kept. Now, better keep them in a sealed container and label it good so nobody freaks out and goes, ah, and throws them all over. Not good. Been there and lived through that. If you keep them in the refrigerator, then at least once, preferably twice a day, take them out, take your lid off, put them under cold running water, and swish it around a little bit so that you get some of the dead to flow off. Now you're going to lose a few live ones. Don't worry about it. They reproduce fast. End of Tubifex. Somebody asked a question on in a Facebook group this week about, can I feed my freshwater fish some saltwater fish food? And my answer is, yeah, maybe. Um, I don't know much about saltwater fish, and I don't think I'd try and feed them freshwater fish food. But what I know is that a lot of freshwater fish actually like saltwater fish food. Krill, spirulina, shrimp. Yeah, brine shrimp. That's brine is salt. Brine shrimp, almost all of them come from either the Dead Sea or the Great Salt Lake out of Salt Lake City, Utah. Very, very salty. That's what brine shrimp are. Freshwater fish tend to like that. With that said, most of my fish just won't eat krill. I've tried. Now, my neocaridina shrimp, they love it. They love it. I can throw some krill in that tank, and I've got some dwarf corridoras in there. The corridoras will swim right past it. The shrimp will attack it. Also, the snails like it too. Other topics. Vacation. When I go on a 3 or 4 day trip, I tell everyone, don't feed my fish. Period. Ever. Never. Now, if I'm going to be gone for 7 days, I probably won't live with that. 2 weeks, no way. So what do you do to prevent somebody from overfeeding your fish? Now, one YouTuber has a real nice solution. He takes little sealable plastic baggies, snack size, and he puts, one feeding in each baggie. And then he tells people, empty this into the bag. That's nice, except if you have 10 tanks, 20 tanks, you got to make sure that you label each baggie as to which fish they go to. And you got to make sure that people understand that. So what? Number each tank and number each baggie. Put the day of the week on the baggie. It gets complicated. I like a simpler solution. I'm a simple-minded guy. Have you ever seen these frozen fish foods that come in little cubes? There's my solution. When I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks, let's say my wife is staying home, whoever it is, I tell my wife, drop 1 cube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday into this 55 and that 55 and into that 29. Drop 1 cube every Monday and Thursday into this 20 gallon. Into my 125, drop 4 cubes a day. Simple instructions, write them down. And underfeed your fish when you're going to be gone. Underfeed. I don't care how experienced somebody is, underfeed your fish. Give them instructions, underfeed. Every other day doesn't hurt them. Makes it easier for people. I prefer to keep everything to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If I feed every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, my fish are going to live just fine. And if I'm feeding them that frozen food, they love it. They'll devour it in a heartbeat. The only concern then is I like bottom dwellers. I have a lot of them. Is making sure that they get enough food. For me, the answer is simple. Extra light for a couple weeks beforehand. They got a lot of algae. And in my 125, I have somebody throw in some algae wafers or something when they feed the cubes. So 4 cubes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in the 125, and 6 algae wafers. Boom. It's that simple. Keep it simple, people. And now people ask me, what kind of food do you use? Flakes, live food, fresh food, frozen food, freeze-dried food, food, or whatever food. First off, I subscribe to my Aquarium box every month. I get some food in there. Every month I use it all. They've never given me enough to handle all my fish. And I don't have as many fish as a lot of you all do. I prefer flake food for almost everything. I don't know the science of it, but I feel like freeze-dried food, I got to feel like they freeze dry out the flavor and the nutrition simply because I've looked at the freeze-dried stuff they make for humans. I've had some of it. It's not good. It's not good. And the nutrition on it's not that good either. My fish love frozen food. They really do. Too expensive. Now, if you have fish that require frozen food, understand that. You got to go with it. Live food to me is more of a pain than it's worth. Sometimes you got fish, you got to have live food, then go with it. And people say, oh, but live food is so much healthier, it's so much more natural. No, not really. But frozen food is so much healthier and so much more natural. No, not really. If you look, like I mentioned before, brine shrimp, feeding them to freshwater fish, that's not natural. It's a salt fish going into freshwater. That's not natural. That's not what they get in nature. Well, they get shrimp, yeah, different kind of shrimp. What they get in nature is whatever is in their area when they're eating. Freshwater shrimp, sure. Smaller fish, sure. Snails, whatever. A cichlid gets in nature the food that's there in nature where they're from. And every natural environment is different from every other one. So, live and frozen food, that's a weak argument, people. Why do I like flake food? Well, number one, it's easy. It's real easy. And the biggest pain I get is I buy it in 1 gallon buckets, and I got flakes that are that big around. And just crumble them up. I just reach in the whole bucket when I get it and start crumbling up. I don't get it all. So when I go to feed, look at this, I got a great big one. Crumble it up. I like flakes because it's easier. I like flakes because they store better. Once you open them, though, you kind of need to use them pretty quickly. Not as fast as some people will tell you, but you don't want to leave them sit around for 6 years and then use them. But the biggest reason I use flakes is these companies have been studying fish for longer than I've been alive. And that's been long enough. And they make food, flake food, that's designed for the fish. Now, I have community tanks. Almost always. Almost all my tanks are almost always community. So I tend to buy a general flake food and then a veggie flake food. And I mix the two together. Probably about 2 to 1, with the veggie being the 1, because the regular's got some veggie. Listen, all this to say, think about it. Do what works for you. Don't do it because somebody famous said so, or some in a book, or TFH magazine, or Amazonas magazine, or YouTube, or a manufacturer, or a wholesaler, or a fish store. I don't care. Do what works for you. If your fish look happy and healthy, if your fish are eating, you must be doing something right. That's when you have fun. Right? Have fun.